Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. There are moments in life when you realize that the person you love has been seeing your relationship through a completely different lens than you have. The shock of that realization changes everything. Not just how you see them, but how you see yourself and your own judgment. For me, that moment came when I overheard my girlfriend of 8 months casually telling her best friend that I was nothing more than a wallet, one she hadn't finished emptying yet. Things hadn't started that way. In fact, our relationship had felt like the most promising connection I'd ever had. I met Vanessa at a housewarming party my college friend hosted to celebrate buying his first place. I almost didn't go. It had been a brutal week at the marketing firm where I worked as an account manager, and I wanted nothing more than to stay home and recharge. But my friend insisted that his closest circle had to be there, so I dragged myself out. Vanessa stood out the moment I walked in, not just because she was gorgeous, but because she seemed to draw everyone in like gravity. She moved effortlessly from group to group, making each conversation seem like the most captivating one happening in the room. I spent the first hour watching her from across the room, struck by her confidence and the ease with which she commanded attention. She had that rare combination of beauty, charm, and warmth that made her magnetic. I assumed she was already taken, judging by how many guys seemed to be vying for her attention. Eventually, the host pulled me into a conversation with her. Vanessa was talking about a recent campaign at the boutique marketing agency, where she worked as a social media coordinator. She was witty, engaging, and genuinely curious about my work. What I expected to be small talk turned into an hour-long conversation. By the time the night ended, we discovered we shared similar tastes and a compatible sense of humor. When I asked if we could exchange numbers to keep talking later, she agreed. The next few weeks felt like a whirlwind: dates, deep conversations, and late-night calls that made me believe I had stumbled into something rare. Vanessa was smart, driven, and seemed to genuinely enjoy being around me. She talked about her work, her travels, and her goals with an energy that made me admire her. On our third date, she told me she wasn't casually seeing anyone else, which made me happy because my feelings for her were already serious. By our sixth date, we were spending entire weekends together. I started to believe I had found someone I could build a future with. 4 months into dating, I asked Vanessa to be my girlfriend during a weekend getaway in the mountains. She said yes without hesitation, and told me she'd been hoping I would ask. That trip felt like the beginning of something real and lasting, and I remember feeling incredibly lucky to have found someone who seemed so aligned with me. As we settled into our relationship, I noticed certain patterns around money. From the start, I had naturally taken on the role of paying for dinners, drinks, and entertainment, partly because I made more money and partly because I wanted to show her that I could take care of someone I cared about. Vanessa never offered to split the bills, but she also never outright asked me to pay. She just seemed to assume I would handle it, always thanking me sweetly and telling me how much she appreciated my generosity. At first, this felt normal, even traditional, and since Vanessa often suggested reasonably priced places, I didn't think much of it. But over time, her expectations grew. What started as dinners and movie tickets turned into weekend trips, designer bags, pricey skincare, and other luxury items she would point out in stores. Things she expected me to buy as surprise gifts. She never directly asked. Instead, she casually mentioned how stressed she was about money, how embarrassed she felt about her old car, or how hard it was to save for the future. Each time, I felt compelled to step in and help, convincing myself I was doing the right thing. Looking back, I can see how skillfully Vanessa planted those seeds. She made me feel like the hero solving her problems instead of someone being used to fund her lifestyle. When I paid for her marketing certification course, she reacted with such joy that it felt like an investment in our shared future. When I co-signed her car lease because she couldn't qualify on her own, she framed it as a short-term step to help her build credit. Within months, I found myself not just covering dates but paying for her rent when she was short, buying groceries, and covering what she claimed were necessities. Vanessa had a way of justifying my spending, reminding me that men provide for women they love, pointing out that I was financially secure, or comparing me to her friends' boyfriends who bought expensive gifts and trips. I told myself that I was just being a good partner, that I was investing in someone I loved. And to be fair, Vanessa was affectionate and attentive. But deep down, I was starting to feel less like a boyfriend and more like an ATM. Her mood seemed tied to what I bought her. When I couldn't or wouldn't spend, she grew distant, a pattern I could no longer ignore. The final blow came during a weekend getaway to a beach resort, which I had fully planned and paid for to celebrate her promotion. The trip felt perfect. We laughed, explored, and enjoyed each other's company like we had in the early days. That night, exhausted from driving, I fell asleep early. Sometime later, I woke up to the sound of Vanessa talking to her best friend in the living room. At first, I didn't pay attention. Half asleep and happy, she was sharing our weekend with someone she cared about. But then I caught her words clearly. She told her friend that she loved dating me because I was such a generous spender. I might have brushed that off as a compliment, until she laughed and added that she could dump me anytime because I was just a wallet she hadn't emptied yet. The casual way she said it, like it was no big deal, hit me like a punch to the gut. She even started listing things she still wanted me to buy before she ended things, treating me like a resource instead of a person. Worst of all, she said she'd never marry someone like me because I spent too freely and would probably go broke someday, becoming a burden instead of an asset. I lay in bed, numb, every affectionate word and grateful smile from her suddenly feeling like part of an act designed to keep me funding her life. I didn't confront her that night. I wanted to respond with a clear head, not just raw anger. By morning, I had a plan. First, I cut off her access to my money, started with a credit card I'd given her for emergencies. She found out that afternoon when it was declined at a gas station. She called me repeatedly, but I waited hours before answering, forcing her to handle it herself. While she scrambled, I met with a lawyer to see what I could recover. Most of what I'd given her, trips, rent, gifts, was gone for good. But since the car lease and a few big-ticket items were legally in my name, we started the process of reclaiming them. By the end of the week, Vanessa received legal notices. She texted me in shock, asking why I'd involved lawyers and what was happening. I told her plainly. I knew she saw me as nothing more than a wallet, and I was done. She tried to deny it, then backpedaled, claiming she was joking. But I repeated her exact words. When she kept trying to call, I stopped responding and told her further communication would go through legal channels. Her biggest concern wasn't losing me. It was how embarrassing it would be to explain to others why she suddenly didn't have the lifestyle I'd been providing. That told me everything I needed to know. I blocked her everywhere. My lawyer helped me recover the car and some expensive items, but most of what I'd spent was gone forever. The financial hit hurt, but the emotional clarity was worth it. Vanessa tried to save face by telling mutual friends that I had overreacted, that I had taken her comments out of context. Some even tried to mediate, urging me to give her another chance. But I had heard enough that night to know exactly what she meant, and her actions since had only confirmed it. I told everyone there was no going back. The trust was destroyed beyond repair. The months after our breakup became a period of painful but necessary growth. I threw myself into work, reconnected with friends, and started therapy to understand how I had been so blind. Therapy opened my eyes. My eagerness to prove my worth by providing had made me a target for someone like Vanessa. My childhood, growing up with parents who equated love with financial generosity, had shaped me to think affection had to be earned that way. I learned to spot red flags, constant financial pressure, comparison to other men, lack of reciprocity, and affection that seemed tied to spending. Most importantly, I learned to trust my gut when something feels off in a relationship. Looking back, hearing Vanessa dismiss me as a wallet was painful, but was also a gift. It forced me to see the truth and gave me the chance to lead with clarity and dignity instead of staying trapped in a cycle of manipulation.